I'm running on the platform of expectations, leadership, and results. So when we talk about expectations, it's the understanding that the board, the superintendent, teachers, there across the board within the township needs to be distinct and specific expectations that are set for really what students are able to do, know and be able to do. So I think that's the first place, is making sure that we have an eye on what student achievement should really be. But there has to be, again, a distinct expectation for that. So when I say a distinct expectation, I specifically mean there should be results that we look at and that we set goals that we essentially set for ourselves as a system. Those goals need to be, smart. I call them SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable. They need to be rigorous and they need to be timely. So, a very specific one. If I'm teaching if I'm a teacher in a classroom, I should be able to set a goal for, understand where my students are at the beginning of the year, and then set goals for how those students will improve during the course of the year, and articulate those goals to not only my students but to the parents and to my principals, so that I'm held accountable for those goals. So that if my students are achieving at a level of proficiency that's at 10%, I may set a goal and say, by the end of the year, my students will be at a proficiency level of 50%. So during the course of the year, I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to hold myself personally responsible for seeing a 40% growth in my students during the course of this particular year, to be that concrete and specific. And likewise, you would see principals do that for the teachers within their school, for the overall achievement within the school, and then the superintendent should be able to look and say, this is what I expect from the different schools within our system. I say those things should happen and those things should be transparent. People in the community should know what those goals are that the students are aiming for, not the students, that the schools are aiming for. And we should understand what the system itself has as a goal for student achievement, and not just say that we expect growth as measured by standardized tests. So what growth do we actually expect? And be concrete about what that growth is so that individuals can hold us accountable to it. So when I say accountable, I don't necessarily mean that at the end of the year someone should be fired, but if you didn't achieve your goal, then what is your plan for making sure that you address the gap that existed in terms of what you stated you would do and what you were not able to do? So that should be, again, a very frank discussion, and that should be presented to the public so that we understand, okay, we didn't necessarily achieve the results that we were looking for, or if we did achieve the results that we were looking for, we have an opportunity to celebrate and say, here's what we've done, and where we've made gains and where we haven't made gains, and be able to have that conversation. The leadership piece comes really in, I think, actions that just need to take place across the entire spectrum, from the actions of the teachers in the classrooms, and teachers having that sense of personal responsibility and latitude to be able to do what's necessary to push student achievement. Principals, again, understanding that their actions matter and being held accountable for their actions. And likewise, the superintendent and the board holding the superintendent accountable for what's going on within the context of schools. And then, the end piece and the last component of my platform is really a focus on results. And I just mentioned a moment ago, the opportunity to celebrate when we are achieving the results that we want to see for kids, and when we are not achieving those results, again, to be very transparent. We didn't make the goal that we were looking for, but more importantly, here's what we're going to do differently to make sure that goal is achieved. Right now, we don't have those conversations. Right now, that information isn't put in a format, I think, that's easily digestible for the community. So you can go back and you can look at goals for next year, and you will not see concrete. They're very general statements, and within those general statements becomes the latitude to be able to do for some students and not be able to do for some students. So when you start holding yourself to very specific percentages, you have to make sure that you meet the needs of all kids in pursuit of the different goals that you set for yourself, and not just using one portion of the community to really carry the other portions of the community. So we want to see that start to happen across the board.